Doing well. Nice little shot of San Francisco there for you.
Yeah,
All right, so you're going to be talking to us today about the Open API integration, which I think is really exciting. Do you want to give us a little introduction about what we're going to see and what's really being unlocked for everybody by this integration?
yeah. So the idea is that you have a lot of projects that are already working very well. And how do you get them into the Hasura supergraph? And you do that very easily without doing a lot of work. And the OpenAPI connector is one massive step towards unlocking that workflow.
Awesome. All right.
Hello, folks. I'm Bilal. I'm an engineer at Hasura, and I will be showing you the OpenAPI connector that we've got. It's very much a work in progress right now, but we still have something that we want to show you. And the reason why we have an OpenAPI connector is uh, that it will allow you to bring in projects that are documented with the OpenAPI spec or the Swagger documentation into your GraphQL API or the Hasura supergraph that you will have with minimal effort. So let's get into it. Um, so the setup that I have is I've got a very simple API that is running on my computer. It's got these endpoints, and what we want to do is we want to bring these endpoints into the project that we have. So this is a new Hasura project. It's got nothing. It's just I've just written this data connector, but it does not have any commands. It does not have any models. It's essentially a new project. And by the end of the demo, what we want is that the Hasura project, which is going to have a GraphQL API with queries and mutations, should be able to use these APIs somehow. So what we'll do is we'll we'll start the OpenAPI connector that we've got. And we're going to choose alpha because that's in production right now. But basically what we've done is we've given it the location of the documentation file and we've given it a base URL. And behind the scenes, what the connector is doing right now is it's generating a bunch of files. And the files that we need to really worry about are the api.ts and function.ts files. So api.ts file is basically a TypeScript representation of this documentation. So it's got all the types that are mentioned here, and it's got all the APIs and the endpoints, right? And function.ts has functions that are wrappers over the API calls that are present in api.ts. And the TypeScript Lambda SDK that we have is going to introspect this function.ts file. And these functions are what will be exposed either as queries or mutations in the GraphQL API that will be generated. And the way to tell whether a function is going to be a query or a mutation is via this read-only annotation. So if a function has this read-only annotation, then it's going to be a query. If it does not have that, then it's going to be a mutation. So now that we have the basics set up, the next step that we want to do is we want to bring these functions somehow into the Hasura metadata. So we want to take something that is in TypeScript and make it a part of the HTML files that we've got. And we're going to do that using the TypeScript Lambda connector that we already have. So I'm going to run the connector using npm run watch. Um, and it's started the connector at my local port 8100. And just to see what the connector is doing right now is hit the schema endpoint. And what we can see is that what the connector has done essentially is it looked at this function.ts file, um, and it generated a schema out of it that can be used by the GraphQL API. And the way it knew where the function.ts file is because we ran it in this directory. You can see that it's running in the OS directory where the files were generated. But now that this is done, what we want to do is we want to bring all of this information into the HTML file that we've got. For that, we're going to run refresh data connector. And this is an older workflow that we had. For beta release, all of this is going to be a lot more streamlined. But that refresh data connector command brought all this information into the HTML files for us. And now what we want to do is we want to track everything that's here. So I'm going to do a track all and um, and the files have been generated for us, and all these functions that were there have been essentially exposed as commands in the metadata. And now that we have the Hasura metadata complete, what we can do is we can create a build and get a working GraphQL API. So we're going to create a build. We're going to do Hasura 3 build create, and we have a console URL. So this console URL, we'll yeah. So what we can see is that we have a GraphQL API and it's got two queries, which is something that we should be able to verify fairly easily by going to function.ts and searching for read only. And we see that there are two instances of it. So we have two queries. Let's try a query. Let's get all the authors that we've got. And yeah, so essentially we are hitting these APIs, and we can verify that by running this API here, and we see that it's the same data that is being accessed by this API. We've got time, so we can even try a mutation. Let's create an author email. Let's say abc at abc.xyz. Let's say the ID is 1. I mean, the ID is going to be allocated by the system, but say the name is and on these, let's run this, and we have a new author that is created for us. And if we quickly rerun the Swagger thing, we should basically see the new author. We have that here. So yeah, that was the demo. Essentially, behind the scenes, the behind the scenes, these are the APIs that are being used, and the connector is ensuring that Hasura can access these APIs and use them in its GraphQL API. That was the demo. The final thing that I want to point out is that this is not 100% complete. There are few things that are not supported right now. For example, enums, the any type, unions, all these things, they are not supported. All these TypeScript types are not supported right now, but they will eventually be supported. We're still working to get there. Cool. That was the demo. Thank you.
Anything you want to add for us there, Bilal?
No, just like Rishi said, even this is something that is not released yet. We are working to get it to a stage where people will be able to try it out very soon.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see about how this is going to unlock a lot of, existing options that are already there for people using OpenAPI. So can't wait to use that with Lambda very, very soon. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.